Today, let's talk all about engaging with your podcast listeners so they can be a loyal fan for life. Stick around. How you doing? My name is Ashan Man, radio broadcaster, podcaster, and a podcast producer. And today we're talking about how you can engage with your podcast listener so that they can become a loyal, raging fan of yours. Now, everything that I do within radio can easily translate over into a podcasting realm. Now, when you first start out with your podcast, you may not have that audience, but if you started a podcast and you started to gain some type of following, it's important that you engage with those listeners. As an example of what I do in radio is that my engagement here on the radio isn't just limited to the phones and social media, but it also includes meeting up with those fans at concerts or at events or at conferences. It doesn't matter where it is. I'm always doing my best to engage with the listener. And something that I have seen with podcasters when I've gone to conferences for podcasters is that you'll see one podcaster say, "Oh my God, that's so-and-so over there. I'm so excited and I want to go meet him. I'm going to go talk to him right now." And what I typically see is that when fans meet their own podcasters or their podcast idols, that podcaster is very nervous to interact with the fans. So for me to share this video with you is important for you to understand that interaction with your podcast listener is going to be one of the single most important things that will build a loyal following. And I want to go over a couple of tips with you today about how you can maintain that relationship with your listeners. So the first thing that I want to go ahead and talk about is social media. One thing that I do here at the radio station is I interact with all my listeners via social media, whether that be Facebook, whether that is Twitter, Instagram, or maybe it's on YouTube, just like you guys here who are watching this video. And you know, if you're on my YouTube video and if you've gone to previous videos, you'll know that I interact with every one of the single podcasters that are on here, and I'm in the comments and I'm communicating. That's the type of loyalty that I like to build with my followers, is because they know that I'm going to share something with them that may help them out or may entertain them. And the same thing happens for my radio listeners. So interact with your audience on social media. If they happen to tweet at you, do your best to get back as soon as possible. For me, it's always difficult because I'm going from point A to point B and I'm not always able to get back right away. But I promise you this, I do get back within the day. So you should be doing exactly the same thing and fostering some type of engagement with those fans of yours. Something that you can do with your podcast is create a hashtag that is surrounded around your podcast program. So for my podcast, Be The Experience, I had the hashtag BTE podcast. For the radio station, we have the hashtag 98KUPD. And the way the hashtags work is that when you're inside of Instagram, Twitter, or even on Facebook, if you click on that hashtag, you can see all the posts that are related to that hashtag. So if you're creating a branded hashtag and you ask your listeners in your podcast to go ahead and post a photo and hashtag it the name of your podcast or something that is very clever or something that is only going to be associated with your podcast, go ahead and tell them, and you can go and search those posts and comment on those photos or tweet back to them. The point I'm trying to get across here when it comes to engaging your listeners in the podcast format is that you are not bigger than life, and your fans will see you as that. And it seems weird all of a sudden that when your fans start tweeting at you, you're like, whoa, this is the craziest thing ever. I want to get rid of that notion that you may seem intimidating. Come across as though you're just a normal person, as if you're talking with them in a one-on-one conversation. Very similar to how I talk with the YouTube people here on my channel, and very similar to how people are talking with me on my Facebook Lives. I'm just trying to have a conversation with them. I'm not bigger than life. I'm a human just like them, and I think that's what makes a podcast host very relatable to their audience. Another way that you can engage your podcast listener is by having them call in and leave voicemail messages. Now, how would you do something like this? Well, there's a couple different ways that you can. There's some software that you can use, and I guess it's pretty much all software. One of those pieces of software is something called SpeakPipe. And for WordPress users, there is a plugin that you can use for SpeakPipe, but I have found that when you go to speakpipe.com, you can use the widget. So what is SpeakPipe? SpeakPipe is basically a voicemail messaging system that has a little tab that's on the right-hand side of your website whenever people go and visit, or you can direct people to your SpeakPipe channel, okay? And what they can do is they can record a message on their phone, and it will directly go into your SpeakPipe account, and then you, of course, can pull that audio down and put it into your final recording, and answer those questions that people may have for your podcast. Now, of course, as with anything when it comes to podcasting, there are some limitations with SpeakPipe. You will have to pay some money to get more services that will benefit you down the line, but for the most part, SpeakPipe is a pretty good application. I've used it in the past. So if SpeakPipe isn't something that you want to try out, you can always try a Google Voice number. Google is still allowing people to have Google Voice numbers within their country. So if you're in the United States, you can definitely get a phone number and people can call in and leave a voicemail number. I've left instructions on how you can utilize a Google Voice number on my blog, so I'll leave the link to this video and its blog in the comment section down below or in the description down below. But I would suggest getting a Google Voice number. If you're trying to reach an audience within your country, it might be worth it for you to go ahead and do that. But I'm going to tell you one of the easiest ways that you can do this is simply by asking your listeners to go ahead and open up the voice memo app in their phone and record a message into the voice memo app and then email it over to you. You designate an email that they should be sending this to, and the audio file that they are sending over shouldn't be no more than a minute long, because the larger the file and the longer the message, the harder it is to download on your end. And so you might want to limit it to about 1 minute, and so you can receive those voicemails. But they make for really great pieces and more content for your podcast. And I tell you what, it's such a blessing to have this technology available to us to create different types of content and see that you're actually interacting with your listeners. If you like this video, go ahead and leave it a thumbs up. And of course, make sure you're subscribing down on the bottom if you're on YouTube. And you might want to share it with all of your other podcast friends. All I'm trying to do is to demystify the idea of podcasting for all podcasters so that I can help them get on their journey and start creating amazing content. Now, when you're doing a podcast, and say it's you and another friend, and you're in a room and maybe you feel as though it's not soundproof quite well, I've got a really good video that you might want to check out. It's going to be over here, or is it over here? Either way, it doesn't matter. You can go ahead and check it out right now. Go ahead and click on the video to watch that video to see whether or not you should be soundproofing for your own podcast.